he can't really do much about it to have me back because he's a first-time head coach. And, you know, Mr. Davis didn't want to put too much on his plate.
Josh Jacobs joined the Green Bay Packers just this past offseason. And despite the fact that he has joined the Green Bay Packers, we do not hear much out of Josh Jacobs unless he's talking about the Raiders. Yes, he has said some things about his new quarterback, Jordan Love, but for the most part, every time that Josh Jacobs talks to the media, it's about his fallout with the Raiders. So we're going to break that down, how he's falling out with the Raiders, what he said recently about specifically Antonio Pierce and the expectations for Antonio Pierce and the Raiders this year. I thought it was pretty crazy. I thought it was kind of wrong for him to do this. You don't want to damper expectations on another team just because you're salty about the fact that things did not work out there. So Josh Jacobs recently revealed why he did not re-sign with the Raiders. Keep in mind, the Green Bay Packers basically paid him the amount of the franchise tag, and he has a couple options to be extended beyond this year. Not fully guaranteed beyond this year, but Josh Jacobs did get offered a hefty amount. Raiders appear to have offered him less money than the Green Bay Packers. That's a big reason, but he said a couple other things about the Raiders organization, and he also said something about Brazil that he's had to apologize for. So when it came to Brazil, he went viral. Josh Jacobs had to retract what he said about Brazil, and you even have on X.com, they have the readers added context saying some of this information he said is false. He literally got verified, fact-checked by X because of what he said. So Josh Jacobs said that when the Green Bay Packers and the Eagles traveled to Brazil to play in a primetime matchup, the NFL is expanding that they've been advised that things may be a little scary in Brazil.
At the part of Brazil we going to, you can't even wear green at.
Really?
Ooh. Yeah.
Why?
They said, like, I guess something to do with the gangs and stuff.
Oh, dude, I'm not going. I'm not going.
So Josh Jacobs saying the gangs and stuff, apparently you don't want to rep those colors at the part of Brazil that they are going to. This, for it being super dead in the offseason, went absolutely viral. This went absolutely viral everywhere. And you had people upset with Josh Jacobs, mainly people from Brazil were upset with Josh Jacobs. You have it here. Josh Jacobs apologizes to Brazil after gang remarks. And you have Jacobs on his IG story after making that comment, damn, I was misinformed. Sorry, Brazil. See you soon. This just sounds like something an agent tells you, bro, you can't be calling Brazil gang affiliated, man. You got to clean this shit up. You're losing some sponsorships here. I mean, does this seem like that type of situation? I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't think Jacobs was making it up that the NFL told them to watch out in this area. Why would he just make that up? Keyshawn Nixon, his former teammate with the Raiders, now teammate with the Packers. You also have Rich Bisaccia, former interim Raiders head coach, out there with the Green Bay Packers as well. Jacobs, friends with Keyshawn Nixon, hanging out with them as they're on the Kay Adams show, and Jacobs had to clear the air regarding his comments about not being able to wear green in Brazil. So apologize on Instagram, now apologizing on the Kay Adams show.
Brand of football is bigger, so we want to expand the game. They said some of the information that we was told was false, but I think it'll be fun, though. I think it's going to be fun to go out there and play against a good team.
So awkward. He's all smiling and stuff. I think some of the information that we were told is false. Some of the information that you guys were told was false. So why was the NFL telling the Packers players false information if this is who told Jacobs not to wear green in Brazil? So clearly it was considered too offensive to say this about Brazil. And because it went viral, Jacobs had to apologize for it. Now that they are talking about this, making a big deal about the green, both of these mother effing teams better be wearing green. And look, the first thing you look up when you search this game is Jacob saying, you know, they're banned from wearing green. NFL responds to Jacob saying that they're banned from wearing green. So it's the second game of the year, September 6th, after Ravens versus Chiefs, prime time on the Friday. It's going to be the Friday night prime time. I want to see the Lambeau yellow and green. I want to see Philly rocking their green. Now that apparently it's safe and it's all Jacob's fault. He was talking out of his ass, or the NFL spokesperson person responded and said, they told the Philadelphia Inquirer, when the game kicks off in September, you will see a stadium full of fans wearing the green of the Eagles and the green of the Packers. A stadium full of fans. Will you be seeing the Packers players or the Eagles players wearing green? That's what we want to know. If not, then Jacobs was right about everything. So Josh Jacobs made some comments about the Raiders, made some comments about his negotiations with the Raiders, but in particular, made some comments about the power structure of the Raiders and Antonio Pierce that I think is important to point out to fans. Kind of alarming here when you think about the future of this team. So first he talks about how with the contract negotiations, he knew they were not going to be able to pay him a ton of money because of the running back market.
Before my franchise tag year, sitting down with Mark Davis, and I told him, I'm like, man, I'm not asking you to pay me my worth because you can't. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I'm realistic with the situation. I'm like, but at least just don't disrespect. That's all I ask. You feel me? Don't disrespect me.
So the odd contract negotiations for Josh Jacobs with the Raiders was part of the Josh McDaniels era. Now you have Antonio Pierce as the head coach and Tom Telesco, former Chargers GM, as the general manager. Now Josh Jacobs talking about the upcoming season of the Raiders, saying, hey, this is where he says the line, you guys want me to come back on a discount and lose? Well, this upcoming season is with Antonio Pierce. It's no longer the Josh McDaniels disaster. Is this guy saying that the Raiders are going to lose this year with Antonio Pierce?
But it's not, it's not winning.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me too, man. I'm like, man, y'all want me to come back on a discount and lose? Like, I don't know how I feel about that.
And that is a huge thing. You guys want me to come back on a discount and lose. And it's like, whoa. So you were saying that you believe the Raiders are going to lose this year. That's why you did not take a discount. Basically saying if I thought the Raiders were going to do well, maybe I would have taken a discount. Is he talking about the Raiders organization as a whole? Is it mainly a shot at Mark Davis? Who knows? Chris Long tries to get him to clarify about Pierce, saying how he likes Pierce. And this is where we get into this conversation about Pierce and the Raiders' power structure. Very alarming.
So when he came in, it probably had to be tough being like, hey, I know I'm leaving, but this does look fun. It looks like he's going to turn it around. And are you able to like pull for those guys, even though you're somewhere else?
Yeah. So like with him, man, like, and you got to know, he called me the heart of the team. So like, he was one of them dudes that he believed in me. Like I honestly say that from even before he took over the job, he used to talk to me and give me, pointers and stuff. And like,
this is why I was shocked that Josh Jacobs did not like re-sign with the Raiders, is because you saw all that positive press towards the end of the year. You saw him with Antonio Pierce calling him the heart of the team, wanting to be a run first team. So that's why it was shocking to see him not do it. And now he's saying, oh, you want me to take a discount and lose? Now he's saying Pierce is going to have a losing season. What the hell happened here?
I wanted to, come back and play for him and things like that. But also at the same time, when it came down to it, like, it was out of his hands.
So that is a huge sentence right there. I wanted to come back and play for him, but when it came down to it, it was out of his hands. Antonio Pierce was technically hired before GM Tom Telesco. GM Tom Telesco said he inherited Antonio Pierce as the head coach. Seems like Telesco is mainly involved with the roster building, not taking too much of Antonio Pierce's input, especially when it comes to the running back position. Jacobs is basically saying Pierce wanted him back. It was out of his hands. What was out of his hands? Was it the financial amount that the Raiders were willing to offer him? Were the Raiders just not interested at all whatsoever? And so it was just the mere interest that was out of his hands? Clearly, Pierce wanted one thing, and it looks like the GM and maybe the owner of the Raiders, Mark Davis, wanted something else, and that's why Josh Jacobs is not on the team.
Like, he like, we want you back, but it's like he can't really do much about it to have me back because he's a first-time head coach, and, Mr. Davis didn't want to put too much on his plate, so he put people around him to handle all of them things.
So there's really not much he could do about it because he's a first-time head coach. That is a big statement by Josh Jacobs. I mean, that is basically saying, like, Pierce in the power structure of the Raiders, because he's a first-time head coach, does not have that much pull, does not have that much say. Mark Davis has added people around him to help him with that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's probably a good and smart move by the Raiders. But just when evaluating this team, the fact that the Raiders don't have Josh Jacobs, you can't blame Antonio Pierce for that. There's different decisions being made, different people having an influence, and ultimately things are out of Antonio Pierce's control. And it seems like that's what Josh Jacobs is trying to tell people and tell the fans when it comes to why did he not resign? Why did he not re-sign? Why is he not with the Raiders still? And Davis seems like he wanted to be cautious with Pierce as a first-time head coach.
So it was just like that. But then not only that, man, I never talked to the GM or none of that. So it was like, it just was what it was.
He did not talk to the GM or none of that. So Tom Telesco is the guy making the decisions, is the guy deciding who's on this football team, likely has the most power on this football team as the GM. And when it came down to making decisions on the run game, did not want to keep Jacobs, did not want to do it, even though Antonio Pierce wanted him to do it. Kind of interesting stuff. Telesco is running the show. Give Telesco credit. If Zamir White, the new running back of the Raiders, ends up balling out, obviously you have Alexander Madison as somebody who could potentially ball out as well if Zeus goes down or is not that explosive. But Zamir White, the running back out of Georgia, who's been sitting behind Josh Jacobs for some time, that guy is explosive. We have seen him shine in preseason. He is projected to be the #1 running back for the Raiders this year. If he has close to the amount of production that Josh Jacobs is, obviously that's a steal. Obviously that's a victory. And we're going to have to give Tom Telesco, the GM, credit if Zamir White balls out, because he's pretty much the dude who made the decision to say, hey, let's pump the brakes on keeping Josh Jacobs. Let's not give him franchise tag money. Let's go ahead and roll with the former 4th round pick Zamir White. So, hey, we'll see how that plays out. Josh Jacobs, though, man, overall, he's just been beefing with Raiders fans. Not only this situation, but we talked about this in a recent video where Josh Jacobs did the F a fake ass goodbye. It ain't no hate to the Raiders. They made a business decision, and so did I. It's simple, move on. A lot of these fans have harassed Josh Jacobs, in my opinion. Some people that I've even blocked, so that's how you know they're nasty people. When a sweet angel like Wi-Fi Willie blocks them, that's how you know they're nasty people. But these people do harass him on the internet. He gets upset, so he sort of has a salty, antagonistic relationship with Raiders fans. And I almost feel like him saying this comment, you want me to come back on a discount and lose? He's not even trying to pull shots at the Raiders or Antonio Pierce. I think this is another example of him trying to trigger Raiders fans. Just another example of it. Because remember, he tried to trigger Raiders fans recently by saying, he texted Davante Adams saying, hey, you want to join the team? Josh Jacobs says he reached out to Davante Adams about returning to the Packers, and then he gave him the eye look emoji. He loved it. They laughed. Man, he loved it. I sent him the little eye emoji. So sending the eye emojis, arguing with fans about not saying goodbye, saying F a fake ass goodbye, get out of my shit, get out of my replies, and now saying the Raiders are going to lose. That's why I didn't come back on a discount. Jacobs, he's going to keep beefing with Raiders fans. He better back it up this year on the Green Bay Packers, or else these salty Raiders fans, these angry Raiders fans are going to come flying in his DMs, especially if the Green Bay Packers flop this year. Jacobs, is he right? What do you guys think? Does Antonio Pierce have no control? So here's my thing. To defend Antonio Pierce, clearly he wanted to trade up for a QB. Clearly Antonio Pierce was interested in that. How realistic was it? Who knows? But the Raiders didn't do that. So did they supply him with the right team to compete this year? Is it kind of unfortunate for him? Maybe so. Maybe so.